So now it's time for the community moment. The community moment is a time when someone from our very own community gets to come up and say something, whether it be something they've learned or experienced. It's our opportunity to kind of learn and kind of live vicariously through somebody else's experience. Today, the community moment is going to be brought by Helen, who is the executive director of Kansas City Oasis. So, without further ado, help me in inviting up Helen.
All right, so I got my little friend here. So this shirt is pretty awesome, thanks to the great design of Veronica Brown. As usual, she never disappoints. Seriously. We're better than everyone else. It's very humble. But what's been really interesting, so I've worn this shirt as I've been traveling the past couple of months. Went to Atlanta and in Houston and then around here. Every single time I wear this shirt, I get positive comments. And people don't normally just randomly talk to me. I don't know if it's because I have what you call resting bitch face or something. I'm not exactly the most approachable person, or so I hear. So I find it kind of interesting that people are like coming up to me like, wow, that's a really great, I love what that says, you know? And I think it's a great design, but the reality is I think it has a lot to do with what it says. People are more important than beliefs. And that is our first value. And I think it's really interesting that it wasn't just here in Kansas City where I got comments on the shirt. It was around the country, and not to mention when we just posted this on our social media, it was like wildfire. People who follow us from around the country were like, I want that, how do we get that? We're working on getting a store on our website so people can buy it. And we've been hooking some people up, especially some other future communities that are working to start that are going to be Oasis communities as well. So why do I talk about the shirt? Well, I think it's just one small element of how grand what we are doing. This is amazing, first of all. So if you're a Gibbet, like this crowd, we're 18 months young here in Kansas City Oasis. When the Time magazine article came out last year, about this time, about a month, it's been about 13 months, it featured Houston Oasis and basically said that, Houston Oasis was the model for these type of future communities, and I think they're right. A national magazine recognized that. I thought that was pretty incredible. And since then, Mike and I both have received multiple inquiries, not just multiple, but tons of inquiries, like, what are you guys doing, and how can we do this as well? Which is what kind of forced us to finally create this national umbrella organization called the Oasis Network. And what that is, and this is what I'm going to share with you, this is why you're stuck with me today. We wanted to start talking about it. I had people kind of ask some random questions. We wanted to make sure we had some foundational things set so that we actually were talking about something that really existed. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of what we're doing with the network. First of all, let's see. Quick, just non-boring details. So they totally might be boring, so I'm sorry if they are. But what purpose does the Oasis Network serve? So it's a middle-of-the-ground kind of setup to where we want to be able to help other cities start their own Oasis and plus provide support. So support here as well. And we achieve that by first and foremost by protecting what we're already doing here. So we have Houston and Kansas City. We're about the same size as each other. And we want to make sure that we protect our brand identity and what we're doing. Our logo, Houston, one of the Houston Oasis people was wearing his Houston Oasis, which is the same, just says Houston, First Fridays. He was up here, and multiple people came up to him and were like, oh, you're a part of Kansas City Oasis. And he's like, no, I'm from Houston. I'm with Houston Oasis, but it was being recognized. So we want to make sure we protect, what we're doing here because it's going so well, and I think we're onto something really, really quite grand. So all that legal stuff means this puppy's trademarked, or on the process of being trademarked. Our values are copywritten, and so just taking those legal things to make sure that we can, do our best to protect what we already have going so well here and in Houston. And then the really important part, the really big part of why I do this is because we would like other cities be able to enjoy community like Houston and Kansas City does. And that means that we are providing the structure and support so that they can start their own Oasis communities. Boston is probably the most well-known that you guys are aware of, because we recently just asked you all to help start by supporting them. And it was great because it was really just so cool to see so many Kansas City people help, be one of the first, 10, 15 people to help give. And I think it's because you guys see the benefits and love this community and want to be able to share it with other people. Boston should be launching sometime in mid-October as of right now. They're deciding that this morning, so they're in their planning phase as well. So Mike, Alice, and Mike will be here next week. You definitely do not want to miss that. We are providing the coaching and support for these communities so that, one, they can kind of follow our model, which we kind of think at this point, Kansas City, we proved concept. Number 3 will be the best help of knowing that. But also just advice and support. A lot of people don't quickly opt in to jumping on board with this. So when we had the Time article came out, we had inquiries from literally all over the world. So the most interesting were Greece and Australia. And so we don't have any international yet. And we still field inquiries. Mike or I take a call from somewhere else in the country about once a week. I've learned how to juggle time zones like I've never had to do before. It's really weird. And I'm pretty bad at it still, honestly. But with that, a lot of people aren't jumping on board because this is not, there's work involved. It's not a monthly meetup, but I think our frequency and how we're set up makes it work. So it's pretty important. So, and with that as well, we're also vetting people. So know that we are taking it very, very seriously when it comes to making sure that we just don't let just anyone, start an Oasis community. Same thing as protecting our brand and our identity as who we are. I'm not going to bore you with all those details. We have phases, and the reason why I'm not announcing, we have 2 other really strong communities that are in their phase 2, that we are waiting for them to meet the criteria before we fully announce. But I was like, can I at least mention, like the zone, So we have one that has 2 really great leaders. One used to be a church planter. They are in southeast coast area. And then another really promising one of a couple looking to start one in the Northwest. And they are putting together their team. So the biggest piece, besides we're doing background checks, interviews, things like that, they have to put together a team of people, of at least 5 people who are their launch team, which is basically kind of what we did here, and then from there your launch team does grow. So they are putting together their teams. If you can't put together a small group of people to start something, you probably can't do something quite like this. So that's our new filter. And with Dallas, if you remember Dallas Oasis, their organizer has passed the baton off into another individual. So we are waiting for her to kind of find another co-organizer and take that back off the ground as well. So what does this mean to you guys? I think there's so much more potential here, so why care about other Oasis communities starting? Well, I think it's really important on a national scale. We know that secularism is growing rapidly. We also know that many of us feel alone or don't have a positive experience with leaving our community. And I think what we're providing here on so many levels, from the education that you get to have from speakers, from the connection and the support that you get, it's huge. Let's see. Other things that we're hoping to do eventually, in maybe a year or 2, we will put on an Oasis convention. We want at least 2 other strong communities that are going. We'll put on a convention. We'll do retreats. We'd like to do trips together. All that really great fun stuff that you see a lot of churches do. All right, so there's this podcast that I've really gotten into. It's John DeLynn, so if you are, I guess, post-Mormon is the better term rather than ex-Mormon. He has a podcast called Mormon Stories, and he's had it out for about a decade. John recently was thrust into the national spotlight when the Mormon Church chose to excommunicate him, and it became a New York Times, he was in the New York Times. And they wrote about it. He was recently interviewed by Helen, who's also the Friendly Atheist, and right off the bat, he asked John DeLynn the question I've kind of been wondering too. He's like, why, you've been kind of vocal about how you don't really believe, these Mormon beliefs anymore. Why try to stay in the Mormon Church? Why go to such great lengths to being excommunicated? Why not just say, I'll sign my name and sign off? And I thought it was really telling, and it greatly relates to what we're doing here. He talked about how much he loved his Mormon community. Loved it, loved being raised Mormon, loved, the family aspect of that and the relationships. And he wasn't just going to let that just go, but he wasn't also, he said, I didn't want to choose between my integrity and my community. So I kept my integrity by going ahead and starting to be vocal about my doubts, about concerns over LGBT issues and concerns over women in ministry, because women can't be in leadership there. And so he's like, I didn't want to choose between, so I tried to balance the two, and I wanted to try and see if maybe I could make a difference. Well, obviously, he was excommunicated. But I think it's very telling. Here at Oasis,